No one in that room expected the moment to unfold the way it did. It was supposed to be an ordinary evening, one of those formal charity events where speeches are polite, applause is measured, and everyone leaves remembering very little. But sometimes, without warning, life creates moments that stay with people forever. That night, something happened that no one present would ever forget. For years, Lee Miho's father had lived a quiet and private life. Even people who followed his son closely barely knew anything about him. He wasn't someone who gave interviews, and he never stood in front of cameras to speak about personal matters. He preferred silence, distance, and dignity. So when he slowly stood up from his chair during the event and began walking toward the microphone, the room grew unusually quiet. It wasn't the kind of silence people plan for. It was the kind that comes when everyone senses that something important is about to happen. At first, he simply stood there, looking at the audience, as if gathering his thoughts. His voice, when he finally spoke, was calm but heavy with emotion. He said that listening to stories about mothers and children that evening had stirred memories in him that he had carried quietly for decades. Memories he had never shared publicly, not because they weren't important, but because they were too personal, too painful, and too sacred. He spoke about the day his own son was born, about the fear that filled the hospital corridors, about the uncertainty, the helplessness, and the feeling of standing powerless while the people you love most in the world fight battles you cannot fight for them. He admitted that there had been moments when he thought he might lose everything. And even though time had passed and life had moved forward, that fear had never completely left him. It stayed somewhere deep in his heart, silent but present, shaping the way he saw family, love, and life itself. As he spoke, the audience listened without moving. There was no sound except his voice. Then he said something that made the moment even more powerful. He spoke about his son, not as a celebrity or a public figure, but simply as a child he had once held in his arms. He said that watching his son prepare to become a father had stirred emotions he didn't expect to feel again. He admitted, with honesty that surprised everyone, that he had not always been the kind of father he wished he could have been. He spoke about the years spent working endlessly, believing that providing financially was the greatest responsibility a man could fulfill. He spoke about missed moments, quiet regrets, and the realization that time, once gone, never returns. There was no bitterness in his voice, only sincerity. He said that seeing his son step into a new chapter of life had given him something rare, a second chance, not to relive the past, but to be better in the present. He then turned his attention to the woman who was about to become part of their family. He spoke about strength, about courage, and about the quiet resilience it takes to bring new life into the world. He said that pregnancy is often spoken about as a joyful journey, but few people truly understand the physical and emotional challenges behind it. There was deep respect in his words. Not the kind that comes from obligation, but the kind that comes from genuine admiration. He spoke about how families are not built only by blood, but by kindness, patience, and the willingness to stand beside one another during difficult times. And he said that true strength is not loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is simply the ability to keep going day after day, even when fear is present. By now, many people in the room had tears in their eyes. It wasn't just what he was saying, it was the way he was saying it. Slowly, honestly, without trying to impress anyone. Then he spoke again, this time addressing something many people rarely talk about openly. He spoke about fear. About how men, especially in older generations, were taught to hide their emotions, to remain strong and silent, to carry burdens alone. But he said that silence does not always make a person strong. Sometimes, silence only makes the heart heavier. He said that speaking honestly, even when it is difficult, can bring healing, not only to ourselves, but to the people around us. For the first time, his voice trembled slightly. Not from weakness, but from the weight of truth. He spoke about family, not as an ideal, but as something imperfect, something that requires patience and forgiveness. He said that love is not always expressed in the right ways, and sometimes people only realize what truly matters after many years have passed. But he also said it is never too late to change, Never too late to become kinder. Never too late to say the words that were left unspoken. By the time he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the room had completely changed. What had begun as a formal event had turned into something deeply human. People were not thinking about status or titles or public image anymore. They were thinking about their own parents, their own children, their own regrets and hopes. When the applause began, it wasn't loud at first. It started slowly, as if people needed a moment to return to reality. Then it grew, not because of performance, but because everyone understood they had witnessed something real. Later, many who were present would say that what moved them most was not the story itself, but the honesty behind it. In a world where people often try to appear perfect, seeing someone speak openly about fear, regret, and love felt rare and powerful. And perhaps that is why the moment stayed in people's hearts long after the evening ended. Because in the end, it was not really about fame or public attention. It was about something far more universal, the quiet bond between parents and children, the passage of time, and the realization that what truly matters in life is not success, but the people we love and the moments we share with them. Sometimes, the strongest words are not spoken loudly. Sometimes, the most powerful stories are the ones told quietly from the heart.